surge in campaign donations from his supporters. You just heard from Lucas. For a look at the longer range impact, let's bring in BlueStack Strategies founder and principal Mara Gillespie. She also served as an advisor to House Speaker John Boehner. All right, Mara, here we go. So does the conviction matter? Should it matter?
I don't think that it'll make a huge difference, and I think some of the polls that have come out thus far have shown as much. I think those who are supporting Donald Trump are going to just double down with their support. But, I think the question that a lot of Americans have, whether you like Donald Trump or not, is, being above the law is one thing, and no one should be. But are you becoming a target of the law because he ran for president again? Would this case have been brought up if he wasn't running? And I think because this case of all those that were brought against him is potentially the weakest one, or was viewed as the weakest because it is so convoluted, that maybe has maybe plays a role for people. On the other end of the spectrum, though, I would say that for those who are not pleased with either Trump or Biden, they now are faced with, do I vote for someone who I don't like that is a convicted felon? So I think that question now comes into play.
I'm just thinking of this. Were these trials brought up because he's running again? Because if convicted of not just the ones that we saw, if something else, that perhaps it wouldn't be good for the country to have someone in the White House who was convicted of such charges. I mean, was perhaps that the thinking behind bringing these charges? Regarding what you said, that if he were not running again, they would not have been brought up.
Right, and I think that those later cases, the federal ones that have not come up yet, are really the most stark when it comes to putting someone back into the White House who did not only try to stop the peaceful transfer of power, but which is one of the hallmarks of our democracy. That question, I think, if that were happening right now, or maybe even in August, maybe that would play differently. I think because it's the Stormy Daniels focus, people knew that going into it. People who worked for Trump, people who voted for Trump, they knew that this was his character. They knew this story about him, whether they believe it or not. They knew this about him. So I don't know that this really does move the needle too much, as the other cases could have.
Sure, and we're not trying to relitigate, but the point was even those who knew the president and the candidate at the time, that's his character, but it was, it was the whole point of the timing of everything. And I think that was what this case was about, as you know, that if perhaps that one more thing came out about Mr. Trump at the time, it could have dissuaded voters from choosing him. But we don't want to relitigate. Let me take a look at Reuters Ipsos poll asking how, has the guilty verdict influenced your decision on whether or not to vote for Trump? 34% of Republicans said more likely, with 55% saying no difference. Among independents, 16% said more likely not to vote for Trump. 58% said no difference. So, as you know, there has been a lot of conversations, as you just pointed out too, Mara, that the president, the former president, was a target of the law. And how do you say that if a jury reviewed and deliberated facts presented by prosecution and defense and unanimously decided to convict on all 34 counts?
I'm not saying that he is a target of law. I'm saying it's a question that Americans are going to have going into the ballot box. But what this also brings up, too, is this, hypocrisy on both sides. You hear it from the right, you hear it from the left, lamenting, the judicial system. Trump has been saying that it's a sham trial. It's out to get him. It's a sham. It's a sham. But then on the flip side, you also have Democrats who are questioning the validity of our Supreme Court in some respects. So I think for Americans sitting back and watching this play out, and especially that small sliver of voters who aren't thrilled with either Trump or Biden, this just adds to that frustration because of the cherry picking of when it benefits you for both candidates, I think, and for both sides. And I think that's really what's going to add to the frustration, but could also lead to people not showing up come November for the election. We don't want to see that, but that might be the outcome, is a lower turnout.
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion out there and people conflating a lot of stuff, facts, and some things that are not. But do you think it was fair, Mara, or just to charge President Trump with taking top secret government documents with him to Mar-a-Lago and allegedly trying to prevent those documents from being retrieved? I mean, was it fair to even charge the president with trying to interfere with the 2020 election in Georgia?
I think I'm not a legal scholar, so, whether I think it's the legal matter, I can't speak to. But I'm not going to sit here and defend Donald Trump. I know what he has done. I understand what he wants to do in running again for president. But I think,
what does he want to do in running again? What is it that he wants to do?
He wants to be president because he enjoys the title. I believe Donald Trump just wants to have the power seat. He likes to be that person that walks into the room and has his loyalists who are cheering his name. He's selling Bibles with his name on it. He's selling gold shoes. I mean, this is part of a persona, and I don't know that it benefits us as a nation to have him in the White House again, truthfully, if he doesn't respect the our democracy or the Constitution for that matter. But I also don't think that I can, confidently say that Joe Biden or Kamala Harris is ready to be the president again either. So, I think that's I'm in a position where I believe that a lot of Americans are as well, where they're really conflicted about, are either of these choices good enough to be president, for 2024? And I just don't know that the answer is yes.
Lots of questions. Maybe you and I should form a ticket. What about that? We'll win.
Let's go.
Let's do it. All right, Mara, it is a serious subject, though. But listen, thank you so much for joining us today. Mara Gillespie, take care.